Let's talk about disinformation. If we take a look at history and we take a look at the Federal Reserve's track record, there has been no government organization that has ever put out more disinformation than the Federal Reserve. Everything that the Federal Reserve has pretty much said about inflation has been disinformation.
I really doubt that we're going to see an inflationary cycle.
Most economic analysts believe that it will have a temporary or transitory impact.
The faster than expected increase in some of those prices is actually a good sign.
The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great,
This is something that will settle down.
Transitory.
And the data shows that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and expected to be temporary. There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. It's highly unlikely that it's going to be long-term inflation that's going to get out of hand. I don't know anybody who's worried about inflation.
Over the last couple of months, we actually saw it trended downward.
President Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, enthusiastically retweeted an economist who had said in part most of the economic problems we're facing, inflation, supply chains, et cetera, are high-class problems.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Well, the number one thing that the president can do is help get COVID under control. That we know is the root cause of inflation.
President Biden this afternoon saying he thinks we're at the peak of the crisis right now and that lower prices are on the way.
The inflation has everything to do with the supply chain. Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home.
If you want to get rid of inflation, the only way to do it is to undo a lot of the Trump tax cuts.
I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. You know, gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything.
Talk about disinformation, right? It gets pretty bad when you start listening to what the Fed is actually saying. And not to mention what they are saying, this all revolves around CPI. So your CPI is supposed to be the cost of inflation. How much more are you spending every day to live than you were 30 months ago or than you were 1 year ago? How they figure out or how they calculate the CPI is pretty crazy.
The Federal Reserve, economists, and talking heads all on television, they continue to understate and underexpect what is going to happen with inflation. First, you can see that gasoline is up 43% over the last 12 months. If you look at something like new cars, it's up 13%, even though they are actually manipulating the way that that is calculated. Then the big one to me is food at home, up 10.8% over the last 12 months. That is completely unsustainable for the average American family. Now, part of the problem is that nobody believes the CPI metrics. They're literally manipulating the way that it's calculated. We see that new cars, all of a sudden, yesterday, it gets announced that they're going to change the way they calculate those price increases. And then you look at something like shelter. They're telling us that rent is up close to 20% year over year on the national average. Home price is up about 20% national average. So how the hell is shelter only up 5%? Well, that's because, of course, nobody believes this number is only 8.3%.
The Federal Reserve pays 477 employees on a salary basis every month to walk into their local Walmart with a clipboard. And they got to go find that can of bean soup, not low sodium, high sodium bean soup, and it has to be the 12-ounce can. And then they record it on a clipboard, and then they turn that in at the end of every month. Talk about human error. And these clipboards determine how the Fed prints money, how the government spends money, how much money they take out of circulation, how they respond to crises like they're responding to right now. The Federal Reserve has increased funding rates by 75 basis points to 1.5 to 1.75 during its June meeting, instead of the 50 basis points initially expected, after inflation rates unexpectedly accelerated last month to a 41-year high. It is the biggest rate increase since 1994, said Chair Powell, and Chair Powell signaled a similar move could come at the next meeting, but he does not expect a 75% basis point move to be common. Jerome Powell doesn't expect it to be common. That should be the first warning sign that this is going to be very common, and most likely 0.75% isn't going to be enough next month. They're going to have to do it by 1%. And if we look back in history, every single time the Feds have tried to do something like this, they've always overreacted, created complete chaos, and then they have to come in and save the day. Meanwhile, the economy has seen expanding 1.7% this year, below 2.8 estimates in March, and the overall growth outlook was also lowered to both 2023 of 1.7% versus 2.2%, and the outlook revised lower for both 2023 from 2.6% versus the 2.7% originally predicted, and the 2024 growth has been lowered to 2.2% versus the 2.3%. The jobless rate is seen higher for the next 3-year period from 3.7% in 2022 versus 3.5%, 3.9% in 2023 versus 3.5%, and 4.1% versus 2024 versus 3.6%. If we take a look at the chart right here, we can see in 2016, when they started to increase interest rates as well, they got up to 2.5%. And they immediately had to reverse course because the economy was absolutely crumbling. They could not raise interest rates anymore. Too big to fail businesses started to fail. And we can see right now we are currently at 1.75%. So the Federal Reserve has done absolutely nothing to get inflation under control. They've reacted way too late. They were still stimulating the economy well after they knew better. And now here we are in this boat. If we swing over to these charts and we take a look at these charts, and this is why I say the Feds have been spending recklessly. This was the C19 crash in 2020. And of course, markets were plummeting down. They dropped by 35% in a 48-hour period, give or take. So the Feds had to step in and stimulate the economy. So what did the Feds do? They stepped in and printed. And they spent $17 trillion roughly in 1 year. So basically, when you stimulate the economy and you got back up to where it was before the economy crashed, would you still convince people to spend money and just keep printing and printing and printing and printing and printing? Until it literally, there was no choice. It was either collapse of the dollar, hyperinflation, or stop printing. And if you get a chance, swing over to my channel and check out this Pay Cuts for Peasants from Jerome Powell. Because the Fed spent $17 trillion because they can't get inflation under control, there is one thing that will kind of help them, and that is you making less money, you going out and spending less money. Your bills getting more expensive so that you spend less money. That's what the government wants right now. They want everybody to spend less money. And Jerome Powell is now blaming inflation on you. He's saying that you, the middle class, make too much money. Even though 67% of Americans right now that make less than $250,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. So if people that are making $200K plus a year are living paycheck to paycheck, I can only imagine what that means for people that only make $40,000-$50,000 a year. And Jerome Powell is saying that you guys make too much money. Because you make too much money, you're spending too much money. And that's causing inflation to go up. That's causing a supply shortage. Everything that they've said to us has been wrong. Every reaction that they've had to a market has been inaccurate. Everything that the Feds have done has made things worse and worse and worse. And somehow Bitcoin is still coming down in value. What does that mean for Bitcoin? Taking a look at the Bitcoin chart, we can see that Bitcoin's free falling. For the first time in history, Bitcoin is about to retest a previous all-time high from a previous bull run. We can see that over in 2017, Bitcoin put in an all-time high around $19,761. We can see right now, Bitcoin's very, very close to reconfirming that same area. It hasn't done it yet, but this will be one of the first times in history that Bitcoin's ever free fell like this. That part doesn't scare me. This part terrifies me. Every other recession, every economic collapse, anytime the markets got really, really bearish, we've always seen Bitcoin regain its dominance on the market. So if we take a look back in 2017, 2018, when Bitcoin dominance free fell all the way down to 35%, within 6 months, Bitcoin dominance had already got back up above 50%. And within 8 months, Bitcoin dominance was already back above 60%. This was May of 2021. Bitcoin dominance was at 40%. This is May of 2022, a year later, and Bitcoin dominance is only at 41%. Now we are going well into the normal market conditions where Bitcoin dominance just thrives, and we can see Bitcoin dominance is free falling. I was like, okay, cool, this is it. Bitcoin dominance on its way back up. This is what Bitcoin's designed to do. It's going to suck all these life out of these altcoins because people always used to take profits into Bitcoin because there really wasn't Tether. There wasn't many other options. And now that stable coins are options, we see people actually putting their money in stable coins right now versus Bitcoin. So is this going to be the time that Bitcoin doesn't survive? I think Bitcoin needs to seriously take a look at projects like Kadena. Doesn't seem like Bitcoin can do it by itself. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So what are the key support levels that we should expect Bitcoin probably to come back down to and reconfirm? If 19,000 breaks, the next support would be down here at about 16,000. If 16,000 breaks, the next support would be down here at 12,000. And if 12,000 support breaks, the next full area of support is at about 6,800, 6,900. Now, the scary part about this is we've seen Bitcoin go 65, 75%, 85% off before. It's kind of normal. But the world's really starting to wake up, and outside of being a store of value, which even as a store of value, Bitcoin would have a hard time being the global reserve currency as a store of value, just because the network's not designed to meet the demands of global world adoption. There's too many people that are going to use crypto. The best thing that Bitcoin could do is see the potential in something like Kadena that was designed the exact same way as Bitcoin, but it's scalable, it's usable, it can meet the demands of global world adoption, and it would take somebody else 5 years to build a coding language identical to what Kadena built, because their coding language was literally built to build a blockchain designed for global world adoption. So drop some comments below. I just became a whole Bitcoiner for the first time in my life. No, I shouldn't say that. I was a whole Bitcoiner a long time ago, but since Bitcoin's been above, $5,000 or $10,000, this is my first time being a whole Bitcoiner. So pretty exciting times, guys. I got a full Bitcoin. Am I going to be right this time? I'm DCing in down from here, because if I leave my money in fiat, it's going to give the government all the control. So the only way to hedge myself, the only way to say, hey, I don't support what the government is doing, is to take the control back from the government by taking control back from fiat. So for me, I'll ride Bitcoin all the way down to zero. I'll ride Kadena all the way down to zero. Because if I don't, there is nothing that's going to stop these wealthy elite ivory tower players from basically printing away your life savings. $10,000 in 1930 would have been worth $200,000 today. So if your great-great-great-great-grandparents survived the Depression and they were able to save $10,000, that $10,000 today should have been able to buy you $200,000 worth of assets. But because the government prints and prints and prints, your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents would have had to have left you $200,000 just so you could buy $10,000 worth of items. And how are you going to pass wealth down to your kids when the government prints it away and taxes you away? We are paying 60% tax in America right now just to live. That is outrageous. How long is this going to keep up before the people say enough is enough? Drop some comments below. Let me know what you think. Hey, you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up. Then check out my Kadena playlist. This one blockchain is going to change every aspect of life as we know it. And then come join us live on my second YouTube channel. Love you guys.